Story 1. I thought I'd share another story from my time working at a very popular theme park in Florida. In previous stories, I've mentioned that I worked at an attraction, and this one took place during one of the busiest times of the year, peak season. On this particular day, I was assigned as the greeter for the Fast Pass line. The crowds were absolutely overwhelming, with wait times for the standby line reaching 2 hours, the single rider line around 50 minutes, and the Fast Pass line stretching over an hour. To manage the chaos, we were instructed to strictly enforce the entry times stamped on the Fast Pass tickets, only occasionally allowing guests in 5 minutes early if it wasn't too busy. But that day, no exceptions. A woman, dressed in white shorts, a fanny pack, and a white sun visor, approached the entrance with her group. Beaming with excitement, she handed me her Fast Pass ticket. Upon checking it, I noticed it was 10 minutes too early for her entry time. Smiling politely, I explained the situation. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you'll have to wait until the time on your Fast Pass to enter. We're extremely busy today." Her demeanor shifted immediately. "Oh, come on, really? It's just a few minutes early." Apologizing again, I stood firm. "Unfortunately, we have to stick to the times today to keep things running smoothly." She huffed. "That's ridiculous. Everyone else let us in a few minutes early." Before I could respond, she attempted to walk past me. I quickly stepped in front of her, blocking her way, and kindly asked her to step aside. Her frustration was evident, and she let out an exaggerated sigh as she moved off to the side, glaring daggers at me. A man in her group, seemingly more level-headed, tried to calm her down, saying, "It's not that serious. Just wait." But she wasn't having it. 3 minutes later, she stomped back over, practically shoving her Fast Pass ticket in my face. "Is it good now? Can I go in now?" I forced myself to stay calm and replied, "Ma'am, you still have 7 minutes before your entry time. Please step aside." She threw her hands up in frustration. 7 minutes? You're seriously going to make me wait 7 minutes? "Yes, ma'am. Please step aside," I repeated firmly. 2 more minutes passed, and as I continued to let other guests in, I noticed a familiar Fast Pass ticket in someone's hand. Looking up, I realized it was her again, trying to sneak through the line. She still had 5 minutes left to wait. At this point, I was beyond irritated, and it was clear she was, too. I stared at her silently for a few seconds before pointing, with 2 fingers, back to the side where her group and several other patient guests were waiting. Fuming, she stormed back. Just then, my co-worker, whom I'll call K, arrived to give me my break slip. As he approached, the woman's demeanor shifted. She noticed I was about to leave, and a smug grin spread across her face. That grin was all it took to flip the switch in my head to petty mode. I quickly briefed K on the situation and told him to make sure she waits until the exact time printed on her Fast Pass ticket. He chuckled and agreed. I walked away, but not too far, just enough to watch the interaction unfold. Sure enough, the woman sauntered over to K with an air of arrogance, holding out her Fast Pass ticket like it was some golden key. K smiled politely. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you'll need to wait until the time printed on your Fast Pass." Her face turned bright red as she nearly yelled, "Did she tell you to do that?" K, maintaining his composure, simply replied, "I have to work with her." From a distance, I stood there, watching the scene with a small, satisfied smile. Sometimes, all you can do is stick to the rules and maybe enjoy a little poetic justice along the way. Story 2. A bit of backstory about me so you get an idea of my mindset. I'm a bartender on weekends and uni student on weekdays. I worked retail for 6 years and often go on autopilot when tired. I once thanked my fiancée for shopping with us after she cooked dinner. Also, if you've never paid close attention to a long-time bartender before, we're pretty good at what we do and like to show off when mixing. My uniform is a long white shirt, bleachable, a blue vest, not bleachable, and black slacks. Not the most comfortable uniform, so I often bring a t-shirt and boardies to change into afterwards. That's me in a nutshell. One Saturday afternoon, it's packed, absolutely bonkers because of the AFL match. I don't remember who was playing. The beer is flowing, the cheers are merry, and the roars are loud. Being the spirit mixer, or more correctly the one who spends the most time around the rack of spirits, I'm mixing a whole bunch of rums for a party of 10. I yank the next bottle of rum off the shelf, tossing the empty at the recycle bin, and spin the top off. Not the smartest thing I've ever done in a 6-hour shift, as I proceed to spill about 5 shots worth of Bundy rum on the hem of my shirt as well as my pants. I sigh but shrug. Spilled alcohol is par for the course on a busy day, and my manager knows I'll write it off. I finished my shift and silently thanked past me for packing a change of clothes. Well, the t-shirt at least. Fantastic. The t-shirt I packed was a deep blue with a decal on the front of a winged fox that read, "I do not give a flying fox." Shout out to the artist Fablefire, look them up. Tossing my rum-soaked top into my bag, I change and leave. Whatever, I'm only going to the nearest Big W, my old workplace, to get some more things and then home. While browsing the confectionery aisle, I feel a presence behind me. Thinking it's someone trying to see what's past me, I mutter an apology and step sideways, tiredly weighing up whether I buy the discounted cherry ripe bag or a block of Black Forest. While I grab the block of chocolate, the person behind me coughs in a "excuse me" manner. Me? Sorry, mate. I step further aside. I put the block back and grab the bag instead. Cherry ripe is better anyway. I feel a tap on my shoulder and turn around to see a walking nest of bleached hair and sunglasses that could make a fly jealous. Karen, I knew immediately. Karen, excuse me. There was more nasal in that voice than a ENT's clinic. Can you help me? At this point, I'm almost on autopilot, and the presence of this Karen flicks the switch. Me. Yes, ma'am, she scoffs as if I have just picked my nose. You shouldn't use such a tone with a customer. Where are your light bulbs? Obviously not in the lolly aisle, I think to myself. I don't know, electrical? That way I think. I gesture in the general direction of homewares and electrical goods. Karen's hands shoot to her hips, tapping her foot. I stand there like a numpty, wondering what on earth she's doing. Well, aren't you going to take me there? No? She throws her hands in the air. Well, I never. The service here is terrible. She leans in to jab a finger at me. I instinctively rock backwards. You need to take me there. Me, finally suppressing 6 years of customer service. Lady, I don't care what excuse you have. She stops, and I notice her nostrils flare. You're not slow, you're drunk. How dare you? Where is your manager? Lady. No, shut up, you drunk, R-word. All this yelling brought an actual employee over. Let's call him Slim. Slim, what's going on? How can you let an employee be drunk here? Are you the manager? No, ma'am, but he's... She cuts him off. I only want to speak to a manager now. Slim turned on his heel and smartly walked over to the PA, calling our floor manager to confectionery. He wimps out and stays at the registers while my old manager wanders over. Manager, how can I? She cuts him off as well. Fire this drunk piece of trash. The manager looks at me. My flying fox t-shirt, my rum-smelling slacks, and my blank expression. She was used to seeing that after I finished work. Manager. Miss, he hasn't worked here for years. Yes, he does. Look at him. She jabs me in the chest, and I stumble backwards slightly, knocking some kinder surprises off the shelf. You're just protecting this drunk jerk. Ma'am, you need to calm down. I won't until you fire this trash. How dare you let a drunk serve me? Look at him. I can't believe you're covering for him like this. You're not very good at your job, are you? You should be taught a lesson about doing your job properly. I kid you not. This woman talked as if she was the manager's mother. She took a few steps towards him and began her journey to slap him. As he was not a child, he caught her hand mid-air. She was pretty slow, to be honest. Are you kidding me? Security. You're banned from this store. Lady? Get out of here right now." Security guards came in running in response to the manager's shout. She kept screaming that she'll call the police for this discrimination. The manager stopped in front of her. She had the two guards at her sides. "Look at his freaking shirt, you dumb cow." It seems she actually took the time to look at my outfit this time. Not the blue pinstripe business shirt the manager is wearing, but a shirt that's borderline offensive and yet cute at the same time. She flicked her hair in annoyance. "Excuse me, I'm late for an appointment." "At 6 in the afternoon?" The guards escort her out while the manager watches her leave, before giving me a sideways glance. I shake my head slowly and just wave it away. Dumb customers were something I dealt with at least once a week as a cashier. I buy my cherry ripes and drive home to play World of Warcraft. Story 3. I've been working with logistics for about 17 years now and gained a bunch of experience. My main occupation has been in a port loading and discharging RoRo vessels. Most of those have a ramp in the aft which all loading-discharging goes through, unlike passenger ferries where you can open a hatch in the fore since it's easier to drive on and then drive off. Some 12-13 years ago, a VIP customer for a truck manufacturer called our office. I got the call and informed me he got the number from the agency because he had certain instructions for the loading of a special truck. Okay, so I hear him out. Turns out this truck is going on exhibition somewhere on the continent and is a bit late from the factory. To save some time, he had hired some photographer that would take some photos of the truck when it rolled off the vessel in the receiving port. He was very insistent that we load it first so it would come off first. Now in the business we have a term for express cargo that is LOFO, last on, first off, which means we load the unit last on deck and so that it will be first off. And this I explained to him, but he insisted we load it first, probably thinking we operated passenger ferries while in fact we operated cargo vessels. So I once again tried to explain, but he would not listen. I finally just gave in and said, "Okay, I'll load it first," thinking I will load it last to make sure it comes off first thing. We hung up, so I thought that was it. Now I can plan the rest of the operation and mind my own business. Moments later the agency called and told me the customer had called them being very concerned his unit won't be loaded first. Now I know the people on the agency very well since we talk several times on a daily basis, and they know me also. And they also know how the vessels are designed and in which order operations go. So they also tried to explain, but the customer still insisted. Now I also got some additional information about the photographer in the receiving port. He was hired by the hour, so it was important he does not need to wait in vain. So we agree that we load the truck according to LOFO principle for the sake of the customer. He does not need to know. Time passes, the vessel arrives, and we start operation. The truck also enters the port. It looked kind of cool, kitted with everything extra you could think of. Also, the customer calls and asks why we have not loaded the truck yet. See, there is a GPS unit in it, which will let the customer know of any movements. So I explain we are still discharging and can't load it yet. Customer says, "But the vessel arrived an hour ago." I see no point in trying to explain since he's all railed up, so I just tell him we're going to start loading soon. He then hangs up. Moments later the agency calls again. Obviously he has been bugging them and they just want to let off some steam. So we laugh a bit about it and then we decide to move the truck onto the vessel so that his damn GPS will make a ping. Right after we hung up the customer calls again and demands we load the truck now. Now, okay, we will load it now. I say then hang up, somewhat annoyed by now. I'm used to this behavior. In logistics, it seems that the one making the most noise gets their way. I never take it personally, and I don't really care. I always try to make the best solution for everyone. Anyhow, now the manager for the agency calls me and wants to know why the customer is so railed up. So I explain to him, and he's like, okay with the explanation. He knows me and knows that what I'm saying is correct, but asks me to hurry up with the loading. So I radio one of the stevedores to put the truck somewhere on the main deck, where it won't be in the way. We will move it later so that it will be positioned as one of the first units off. Customer calls a few minutes later, since the GPS probably reported movement, and goes something like this. Now this was not so hard, was it? I should not have to call managers to get things done around here, should I? I only reply with a dry, "You're welcome," and hang up. Now I'm actually annoyed for real. Some time later, the stevedores let me know they've emptied the lower hold, the part that takes longest to discharge, but is quickest to load. So I tell them to put the truck in the deepest corner of the lower hold. Customers should be satisfied with it being loaded first, as per request. So we fill the rest of the vessel. I send a report to my manager and the agency what happened and go home. 36 hours later, the vessel arrives in the receiving port. Photographer is in place, also the customer, I got told later on. I can only imagine how boring the wait must have been. Week later, the agency received a written complaint from the customer that he had to pay the photographer for the waiting. But it felt kind of low effort. Not a word on being loaded first. I think the customer finally understood and learned his lesson. Years later, I actually met the customer in person, and he turned out to be a really nice person. We've had many dealings with each other since then. I even asked if he remembered the truck incident. He did. It was his first big assignment, and he was so stressed out about it. Go figure. Anyway, we have a good relationship between us, agency, port, and customer now. Story 4. So, this happened a couple days ago, and the more I think about it, the more disturbed I get. For some backstory, I'm a huge musical theater nerd, and a few years ago, I got to see Phantom of the Opera in Seattle. And as a souvenir, I bought a tote bag with the play's logo printed all over it that I am still very fond of. Now the show is playing in a theater in my area, and there's been a lot of local buzz about it. I went to see it this weekend and decided to carry my Phantom tote for a while, since my love of the show has been bolstered, and the bag is a great conversation starter for other theater nerds I may meet in public who recognize the show that my bag references. Now let's set the stage. A couple days ago, I went to the grocery store near my apartment to stock up on some pretty standard foodstuffs, and when I walked in, I saw a cashier I'm friendly with working the self-checkout kiosk, so I stopped to talk to him a few minutes. My bag was hanging over my shoulder, within clear view of the doors. After a couple minutes into my chat, I felt a tap on my shoulder, so I turned around to address whoever was trying to get my attention and found a relatively normal-looking woman. Average size, normal clothing, normal hairstyle. Nothing to indicate this woman was a Karen type in any way. Entitled Mother, is that the Phantom of the Opera on your bag? Me, happy to chat about one of my favorite musicals. Yeah, do you like this show? It's fine. I took my daughter last weekend to see it at local theater. She loves musicals. Me too. I thought it was a really great show. The cast did a really great job and... Cutting me off, she said, "Did you buy that bag there? I didn't see that bag at any of the booths." Actually, I got this in Seattle when I saw the show a few years ago. Oh, because there really weren't any souvenirs at the show my daughter liked. She would love that bag. She looks at me expectantly. Realizing what she wants. I'm sorry your daughter didn't find any keepsakes she wanted. She was so disappointed she didn't have anything to remember the show by. She would love your bag. Love it. Well, I know I love this bag. I hope the next time your daughter sees a show, she finds a souvenir she likes. I'm pretty nervous at this point because I'm very non-confrontational, and I've read plenty on this subreddit to know entitled parents like causing scenes. I gripped my bag very tightly, trying to hold it against my body with my elbow, and with both hands tightly on the straps. I've got to go do my shopping now. Excuse me. To my pleasant surprise, she didn't say anything else, so I really thought I'd gotten away without any crazy happening. I grabbed a basket and went to the cereal aisle. As I'm putting Cheerios into my basket, the entitled mother also enters the aisle. She doesn't have a cart or a basket, and she doesn't try to approach me again. Instead, she just stares at me. I decide to try and ignore her and go about business as usual, grabbing the things on my shopping list. Every aisle I go to, she follows me into. Every single one. Just staring at me. I'm certain she was just waiting for me to let my guard down. I go through self-checkout, and she hangs by the discount bread rack nearby, still watching. Knowing she's probably not going to give this up when I leave the store, I flag down my acquaintance working the self-checkout kiosk and tell him I'm pretty sure that the entitled mother is going to follow me to my car. He's wary of her and walks me and my purchases out to the parking lot and doesn't leave until my bags are loaded and I'm in my car with my doors locked. I was still keeping an eye on the entitled mother, and sure enough, she left the store when I did, watching me as I got to my car. I saw her get into her own car, still watching me. My acquaintance who walked me out went back to the store, and I was left alone in my vehicle, caught in an awkward staring match with the entitled mother, also in her car. She didn't even try to hide the fact she was watching me. It dawned on me that the entitled mother was likely to follow me home, so instead of taking my usual exit that would take me back to my apartment, I drove over to the exit that turned off onto the more major street. The entitled mother followed me like I expected. I sat there for a couple minutes at least, waiting. See, there's an intersection at the corner of the grocery store with really long light times, so cars end up lining up a fair amount. I waited until the last possible second until that light turned green and unleashed a wave of cars, turning right just before they hit, leaving the entitled mother stranded to wait for them to pass if she wanted to follow me. I drove up the street and got on the highway, then took the exit for the next neighborhood over and took the back way to my apartment. My car is pretty noticeable, it's bright orange, and I didn't want to take any chances that the entitled mother may recognize my car by going back the way I came. It seems I successfully ditched her, because no one has come banging on my door demanding I give them my phantom tote. Needless to say, I will be leaving that bag at home from now on. Update. For anyone who still cares about this incident, I have news. The entitled mother has been banned from the grocery store. I haven't seen her since, but my acquaintance who works there saw me come in this morning and asked me if I remembered the crazy lady who wanted my bag. Turns out, she's been in a few times since she followed me, but didn't pull anything until last week when she attacked a girl trying to steal her My Neighbor Totoro-themed jacket, again claiming her daughter would love it. Police were called. I have no clue if that poor girl is pressing charges, but I hope she is. Either way, the crazy entitled mother is no longer allowed in the store and us nerds can once again shop there with our nerd merchandise in peace. Story 5. In the early 200s, I worked for a short time taking calls from emergency services who had issues with their equipment, but also from people whose car had disappeared and wanted to see if it had been towed. If your car had disappeared, you had to ring us to get a log number so you could report it stolen. Police tow service, how can I help you? My car is gone, Karen tells me. I can look into that for you. What is the registration of your car? She provides reg and I type it in. Our system accessed the DVLA records and brought up a description and registered keeper. Okay, can I confirm the name of the registered keeper? Why do you need that? So I can confirm that the registration you have given me is the right one. Can you confirm the name of the registered keeper? It's M. Karen. Okay, madam, thank you for that. Can I confirm where you were parked when you last saw the car? We asked this to log that it was towed from where they left it, or if it wasn't towed. It was added to the log for the police report that would be forwarded at the end of the call. It was to help the caller save time. She gives the street name. Thank you, madam. I can confirm that your car was towed by the local council and is currently at X pound. Why did they do that? The report states that you were parked on double yellow lines in a no parking zone. It was towed at X time. But I was only gone for a few moments. When did they tow it? What time did you park there? She gives a time about 2 hours before the towing. So not just a few moments. Madam, I can see that the report states that traffic warden noted the car there over a 90-minute period. It was ticketed twice, then towed. Note at the time. If you parked in a no-park zone, they could redicate you as it triggered the towing. Your car is now at Roman 20 compound. As it is now X o'clock, the compound is closed to the public, and you will have to attend tomorrow with proof that you are the registered keeper and proof that you are you along with the tow fee of £X and the release fee of £X. You will have to deal with the parking tickets separately. There is a fee of £X per day that the car is stored. Now, as a matter of interest, I knew the area she was towed from very well. It consisted of small, narrow streets, and they were all no parking with signs saying you would be towed. That's ridiculous. Now the caller said that they parked around 6 p.m. and were only parked for a few minutes. The car was towed around 8 p.m. and she called around midnight. We came out of the theater and the car was stolen. I'm sorry, madam, the car was not stolen. It was towed because you parked it in a no parking area. I need my car now. My husband and I are here needing to get home. You must bring the car to us now. I appreciate your frustration, madam, but I am not able to do that. You have to go to the compound tomorrow morning to release it. This is too much. I don't want to deal with this now. Bring my car back now. Now we had every call recorded, and when you rang in, you got the message telling you that. We needed it because people were never happy to have their car towed for parking like a numpty. Madam, I cannot do that for you. As I have said, you have to go to the compound tomorrow with the relevant paperwork and payment. Then you can retrieve your car. Now, if there is nothing further. You are being so nasty. I need my car now. Bring it here. I can't be dealing with you. Then she hangs up. Now, apart from the fact that I couldn't get her car, I had no idea where she was when she called. I logged the convo and closed down the call. 20 minutes later, my colleague gets her on her line, and Karen says that I'd promised her car would be there, and it wasn't, and she can't deal with all this now. Calls were slow at that time, so my colleague has listened to my call previously and told the caller to follow the instructions I'd told her in the morning. Apparently, Karen told the colleague that she just can't deal with trivial things like that and to get her car to her now. Colleague told her all calls were recorded, and that was not happening, and ended the call. We didn't hear from her again that night. Story 6. Some 9 months ago, my 27-year-old boyfriend got into a big argument with one of his brothers, age difference of 4 years. After he had been disrespected by said brother, let's call him Tim. His brother's tone was very entitled and provocative during the entire argument, and he refused to admit he had crossed a line and was even trying to start up a fight, saying, "If we can't resolve this with words, there's only one other way we can end it." And then he got up and my boyfriend got up, and they were both face to face. Me and their other brother, let's call him Matt, broke it off, and they went to separate rooms. They made peace a few days later and were all right, but apparently that confrontation shook the whole family. Matt, he's 26, was apparently very traumatized about the whole experience, even though it had nothing to do with him, and he told on them to their parents like they're teens or something. He blew things completely out of proportion, saying that Tim was totally innocent and not provocative at all. It's important to note that Tim has verbally and physically bullied their youngest sister. There's 7 siblings in total, and has punched their father 3 times in a row one time. He often has fits of rage, and he's always calling himself names and saying how he's a loser and weak. I've heard this firsthand. But at the same time, he puts on this facade of being a tough guy all the time. Their parents came over. It's their home, but they live in the countryside now, and each spoke to them one at a time instead of all together for some reason. In the end, Tim was seen as the poor innocent victim who got bullied by his older brother, and he never admitted to their parents and siblings the truth, even though he blatantly told it to my face after that argument, saying he was looking for a fight. After this, all of the siblings and both parents saw my boyfriend as the villain, despite knowing Tim's aggressive behavior in the past. So the parents decided, along with his siblings, that it would be best to send my boyfriend to their country house where they could keep an eye on him, and he could only go to the house in the city if one of the parents was going as well. This went on for the last 9 months. My boyfriend was finishing grad school, but because of COVID restrictions, he couldn't go back to where he was staying before, so he was stuck at his parents' home for the time being. The home environment was terrible, and they kept treating him like a kid. None of the siblings would come over either. They wouldn't even bring the family dog there anymore, which they used to from time to time. It was like they had exiled him. It's ridiculous. Anytime he'd go to the city, he had to be back by dinner time. They made his life miserable, whilst he had exams to correct and grad school work to worry about. He has now gotten a job while still finishing grad school and found an apartment in the city. He told his parents he's moving out for good, and they still had the nerve to ask him, "Oh, you're moving out because you want to write, and not because of the way we treated you, right?" He didn't even bother answering. He just packed his things and left. It's been a week, and they've now been calling him and texting him to come for this family lunch or that family dinner, and spend the weekend at their country home with everyone where we'll all be together as a family. We of course knew this was going to happen. He has ignored every phone call and text, but his patience is running out. It just boggles my mind that his parents have not realized that they've completely alienated their son by their own doing. And I'm sure they'll be playing many emotional games from now on, but my BF will have none of it. It's also important to note, he's the first one to actually leave their parents' home. His older sister, who's been working for the past 5 years, still lives at their parents' home. She has absolutely no costs besides car gas, along with the rest of the siblings that are in college. His parents of course got used to that and became quite the helicopter parents. So him leaving was, somehow after he was treated like a leper, a big shock for his parents. To add to all of this, Matt has used this incident as an excuse for his own mistakes/bad decisions. Like when he failed a class, "It's because of what happened, it shook me a lot." He lied to his parents, saying he was at college and in reality he was staying with his girlfriend. When he was caught, because his parents were paying for his accommodation, and he hadn't stayed there for 3 months at least. He said again that he felt overworked because college coursework and was still overwhelmed by what had happened 9 months ago. He didn't come home for Easter because he just wanted to stay with his girlfriend, which is totally fine, but instead, he said he felt unsafe to come home since my boyfriend was there. He actually wasn't at the time. He was away with me and Matt knew that. In this family, sweeping things under the rug and pretending they're all a happy family is their way of handling things.